don't know if that's just,
I was going to ask you, did I miss that?
Nope, we didn't do it.
Okay.
Right after the construction is completed. I'm going to read through and I was going to get the fixed rate finance. And
you wanna go
will they
real fast?
determine the rate based on whatever interest rates are running?
No, the one that was left, Maximus.
Yes. okay.
15's not youth anymore in my eyes. They need to change that. Youth should be like youth. I don't know. Who's
Or
gonna
keep a
take
good
it? I was
record.
bowling.
I'm not trying out, and she said I couldn't include the people that we had some trouble with some of the trust paperwork, so I have to redo it.
I recognize that notebook, although I have to say the line contribution is from Ken Strom, so that's.
No.
He did? So do I.
Like 14,000 deer.
I need to do it.
Oh, good, maybe they're shooting the small ones.
So you did it?
I hadn't seen anything. I saw a bunch of them on Facebook and stuff.
They need
I was too
computer software
busy
systems.
looking at that
All
and
these
shooting at
levels
those
of-
and walking out. I was like, oh crap.
Supposed to be good. I used to all those levels.
My phone down in there, whole buried.
Oh, in your vehicle?
Yeah.
Want me to call it?
If you want, we can go ahead and get started. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna.
Okay, we're on now.
Yeah.
Okay. Tony Stegeman with.
Oh, I mean, we probably need to,
Sorry.
we had recessed for, so we probably need to
All back on.
call back into order, so, make a motion, we come back into session. I'll second it, mister.
Yeah, I'll go for Chris.
Okay, we'll wait for Chris.
Yeah, I'll second it. Just messing with you.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Are we not wanting to wait for him or what's?
He's on the phone. He's on his phone.
He's on his phone.
We waited this long.
Okay. We might sing rounds. We can do roll, roll, roll your
We'll
boat.
wait for him, we waited for Larry.
Oh.
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
Meeting Chris Eppley. Chris Eppley, please come to the commission.
That's gonna be loud, so we're watching that.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah. Okay, we went back into
I
session.
know.
Okay.
Still in time.
Okay. Ms. Tony, your show.
All right. Tony Stegeman with Gilmore and Bell, and we're glad to be working with you all again and serving as bond counsel for the county on this financing, proposed financing for the Neighborhood Improvement District. You have a petition that has been presented for the Parkview Meadows Neighborhood Improvement District, and Kelly is here representing the homeowners association, I guess, right? Okay. And so the clerk's office has certified the petition as having the sufficient number of signatures. So all appears to be in good order there. The action that you all are going to be asked to take today, if you should decide to move forward, is you have an order in front of you that would do a couple of things. First, in order to actually form the boundaries of a neighborhood improvement district, the action taken is to determine the advisability of forming the district and starting that process of developing plans and specs for the project and that sort of thing. So approving this order would really just kick that off. And it doesn't bind you to complete the project at this point. It simply enables everything to be kicked off so that you can get your temporary financing in place and go ahead and direct plans and specs to begin to be prepared. I understand that Debbie's already reviewed with you the proposals that came in on the temporary financing. And that Hawthorne is the lowest bid there, but go ahead.
Do the people in the NID or in the district, do they have any say in who we do this through?
No. And the reason
Us,
is,
the ones that are financing it, we get to pick and choose. Okay, because I didn't know if they had any weigh in on whether we use ABC Bank or XYZ Bank.
No, and, keeping in mind that a neighborhood improvement district, unlike some of the development districts you hear about, community improvement districts and transportation development districts, all of that, a neighborhood improvement district is really nothing more than a line on a map that establishes a special assessment area. And so it is still a county project, subject to all of your county rules and regulations about bidding projects and how you let contracts and that sort of thing. The roads will be county roads when this is all done. So it's all subject to your normal requirements. The debt, the obligations that will ultimately be issued on this are in fact the county's obligations. So your repayment of those obligations will come ultimately from the special assessments against the property. To the extent that those assessments come in short, this is still a general obligation of the county. So you are still required to come up with other available revenues to pay it. You can't levy a special tax to pay it, which is the difference between a true general obligation bond that's supported by a debt service levy that the city might issue, for example. But you do, it's like your obligation that you have on the jail for the certificates of participation, where it's payable from, all available funds to the extent you've appropriated it. On this bond issue, the neighborhood improvement bonds, it is payable. It's not subject to annual appropriation. And so what we're doing on the temporary financing is entering into that with a typical construction drawdown type of loan, so that even though we'll go ahead and get things papered and brought back to you for approval as soon as possible on that construction financing, you haven't borrowed anything until you start making draws on it. And so my understanding is that you all wanted to have that in place so that when the engineering firm is engaged for the plans and specs, you're paying for it with those construction loan monies as opposed to drawing down from other county funds. So let's just say that you get to the point where the construction, the plans and specs are done, you bid out the project, and the bids come back in higher than what you're permitted to move forward with under the petition. So at that point in time, you have the option, because it's still a county project, so you have the option of moving forward with the higher bids, recognizing that the county will have to pay from other funds the difference that's above the petition, 125% of the petition amount. Or you simply reject all of the bids, go back and, rebid the project to get it within what the property owners have petitioned. Questions yet? The other thing I wanted to go over with you, and perhaps you guys have discussed this before, but my understanding is that there are about 10% of the properties in this area that are still owned by the original developer who is in bankruptcy. So that you need to, this is not so much legal as it is just credit, and are you going to have enough special assessment collections to pay the bonds when you move forward. So that'll be something that if you should decide to move forward today and just start the process of the plans and specs, Joy Howard, as financial advisor, will help you with that process in the long-term financing, because that fact will definitely be something that has to be disclosed to a long-term lender. And if this is going to be a public offering, which I think Joy is expecting it would be since the financing goes out 20 years, that'll be a disclosure that certainly will have to be put out in the prospectus for the public offering. You'll have to figure out a way to counter that. And that would be, okay, bondholders, don't worry about it because we're setting aside X amount of cash in a reserve fund to be able to help cover those delinquent assessments. And, so those things can be offset, but the fact that you're starting off with 10% of your properties,
Question?
yes,
So it is rumored that the bank would take possession of those properties in the near future. How long before, I'm assuming the assessments would not be levied against the properties until 2016 or 2017?
2016.
2016. So if the bank takes possession of the properties by 2016, then they would be responsible for the special assessment for the NID rather than the developer who is declaring bankruptcy.
Right.
Okay.
So your neighborhood improvement district assessment is treated just like property taxes. And it will actually be collected with the tax bills. And so if whoever owns the property, if they're currently paying their property taxes, then I don't think this is a big concern, and that is something that we would ultimately just explain in the disclosure document. Yes, there's been a bankruptcy, there's, a foreclosure, but the taxes have been paid, and, it's a non-event at that point. So you can always collect your special assessments through a tax foreclosure sale, but as you all know, it takes some time for that sort of thing to happen, which is why you build in reserve funds.
And when you say that, you mean after 3 years that we can sell it at the courthouse steps?
But I would think,
No one goes into these things with that.
I would think the banks would probably take these back, because that's,
And then pay the
and
taxes.
pay the taxes, because
Exactly.
that's some valuable lots, I don't think.
It's believed to be Hawthorne Bank who would take possession of these lots, your top bidder. So I am assuming that they have some information on those lots and are
And so
familiar with it.
there may not be any real risk at all then.
Look, I can't picture them letting them be sold on the courthouse steps. I'm on a bank board, I know we wouldn't, with something of that value.
Yeah, I mean, it makes more sense to advance the funds and pay the taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Okay, so the process moving forward, if you should decide to accept the petition and kind of just, start this process, then this order that you have in front of you, we just need to pencil in Hawthorne Bank's name as the successful bidder on the financing. Then we would start working on documents for this construction loan. I spoke with the officer at Hawthorne yesterday just to clarify that in fact their bid was for a tax exempt rate and that they wanted us to prepare the documents for their review, and that is what they want. So I think Joy Howard's RFP had said financing documents would be available around December 1st. So, we can probably speed that up a little bit if we need to, but I thought it might be helpful now to visit with Larry and Eric about just timing on moving forward with plans and specs and that sort of thing.
Well, even if it was December 1st, I think we could still have time. We wouldn't want to bid it until next summer, or start construction until next summer.
But plans and specs.
Right.
So are you all doing those internally, or are you getting an outside engineering firm to do that?
We've talked to an outside engineering firm about preparing these for us, just due to lack of staff on ours. We're still,
My big question is, do we treat this like a normal county project?
Yes, you do.
In which we hire the engineering company like we would any other project, correct?
Yes.
Okay, no special thing to
That's
go
right.
through? Okay. Then
we've been in contact. But, it was December 1st, so I think they'd have sufficient time to be able to prepare the plans. Eric, you've been talking to him more than I have. Do you think that'd be sufficient?
So we would be authorized to start talking to engineering firm December 1st, is that right?
No, the order today will authorize you to start talking to engineering firms.
Okay.
You will not be authorized to actually engage someone with a contract, which I presume that the commission would approve. until the financing closes, and so that'll be
Which will be-
probably around the first week or so of December.
Okay, that's the, okay.
I think that's a workable deal. I don't think we need to speed it up necessarily, because, like I said, I think there's sufficient time from, we've got a contract ready to go 1st of December. As soon as we get to go ahead, we can bring it to the commission, get it done, signed, and authorize the contract, or the consultant to start. I think there's sufficient time to be able to get plans done where we can bid it in March, February, March, something like that, where they can start work as soon as weather broke.
So how comfortable are we with these prices?
I'll say the
You
same thing I
helped.
said the last time this came up. It's just on, really my best educated guess
Okay.
on what this is gonna be. It could be more, it could be less. I tried to estimate it on the high side,
Okay.
so, but there's no guarantee.
Right.
I'll
Well,
tell you
Eric's-
straight up, it's,
Eric's known how we've worked well, ever since I've been up here, and he's usually trying to be on the high side.
Okay, that's what I.
But still making it well educated.
Yeah, that's, okay,
it was three of us that went through, and it's more of a quantity thing, not a price thing.
okay.
And three of us went through and looked at this and came up with what the quantities would be, so.
Myself, Eric, and Larry Bishop actually walked
Okay.
the whole
Okay.
subdivision, marking out, getting measurements of areas that need to be replaced. But like any job when you're rehabbing a road, when you open it up is where you find the issues. And Jeff knows that as long as he's been there, that's where we've gotten into.
Would they used to fill it with old logs?
Yeah,
So you could run into something.
Yeah.
I don't think that, but that's a good example. The one we just did this summer, out there in the Woodward subdivision, we were pulling trees and stumps and logs and everything else out underneath. We couldn't get it to stabilize, that's where,
I don't solid fill.
Yeah, we were there on most of the construction out there, when it was being done. I don't think we'll have the issues, but at the same time, CYA.
Tony, what are the options if it does come back a lot higher than what the petition says? What are the county's options at that point? If it is,
Well, there's a 25% buffer in it already.
That's correct.
And that's for
So
construction? There's a 25% for construction?
all costs
Everything.
included. And so keep in mind that you've got in this 125% limit, which is based upon the petition amount, that's everything.
Right.
So whatever's, the principal amount of the long-term financing cannot be more than that. And so, the options are, you decide not to move forward with the project, which sometimes happens, not
so
often.
we do have the option at that point to say, the cost is way more than your petition. We
Yeah,
are
we just-
deciding not to move forward.
That's
Can't do
right.
it, okay.
That's right. At that point, though, you'll have to pay off the temporary note from other funds,
We'd have to pay the consultant.
Okay.
and you won't be able to assess that against the properties.
I really don't think it's gonna be higher.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I think we could make this work.
Yeah.
It just, you just don't know. You're not 100%.
We feel reasonably comfortable, but at the same time, we want to tell you that when you open something
Yeah.
up, there's always the chance that something was buried that shouldn't have been, that our inspector wasn't there when they did it, type of deal. It's part of the construction game that some of the contractors will play, so.
We can get this bid early enough and give them more than enough time to do it. Structure it to favor the contractor, I think we'll get some good prices.
Now, what you'll need to keep in mind on the construction phase of this is that we want to be able to get this on the tax bills in December.
Okay.
Otherwise, your first collection's a whole year later. And so, in order for that to happen, you're just working with the tax bill cycle,
When-
okay? So whenever the tax bills go out, you've got to make sure that,
September, October.
I think it's October 1st, yeah. They have to know in September to get bills ready October 1st.
I can confirm that.
Yeah.
Well, that's gonna happen.
now, typically,
The construction days on it.
I mean, I kind of made a rough guess. I mean,
know, they're talking about next year.
It seems like a lot, but really, if the contractor
But they
comes in there and
have-
starts looking, it's not going to take that long.
I understand, yeah.
So here's
If we
what's
have
happened.
Dig-outs underneath.
I don't like that. Like I said, I think we can be fine. We just got to make sure we know
Yeah.
what our
need-
parameters are.
Yeah, we need to know that because that's what we'll build into the construction contract, that it has to be done by a certain date.
Right.
Okay.
And you, I mean, we'll talk about that more, but it's backed up even more than that because you've got to give property owners 30 days opportunity to prepay the whole thing without financing it. And so, you know, you can't really get to the point of setting your special assessments until you know who's going to prepay. So it all backs up a little bit more. Now, what happens if you just miss that? Okay? And so you can't get it on the property tax bills for 2016. I mean, if there's enough room in the financing or in the petition amount, you could just delay the assessments for a year, yet go ahead and get the bonds issued and use part of the proceeds of the bonds to pay a year of interest. That would mean that the assessments get paid out essentially over 19 years instead of 20 though. And that means your annual assessments will be higher. So it's not an ideal situation, but I've seen it done.
Well, if we can, we just need to know the date.
What the date is, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Larry's not here right now, otherwise, I don't know,
Well,
the girls would really know.
I guess not only what Larry's date is, but what Tony was just saying, you know.
30
then
days,
30 days
30 days
prior
prior
to
to that.
So that's the date that, you know,
Mhm.
as far as Public Works we'll need that, you know, we'll need both dates.
Mhm.
We need to know when we have to have it done where we can say this is the final amount.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, one question, kind of going back to the 25% buffer, and if it goes higher, at that point, if it's higher than that buffer, we would have the option of starting the process over again by talking to our people with a new number. But that number would be solidified pretty much at that point, because they would, the
Well,
engineers might know.
Well,
Somebody's not going to hold their
Yeah,
bid
Would have a
for
better
too
idea.
We'll have a
long.
better idea, yes, but you know, depending on the industry, you know, if all of a sudden there's a lot of money cut loose, prices tend to go up because there's more construction, you know, they're gonna have to buy more equipment, hire more people, type
Right.
of deal. So, yes, we'd have a better idea, but as far as an accurate one, probably not, because it depends on the market. You know, we're steadily seeing prices starting to go up now, just because of the recession we had over the past few years, but we're starting to see some price increases.
So between here and there, then, once you get your plans and specs finished, then we will, we'll come back to the commission. Commission needs to have an order that approves the plans and specs, then notices go out to all the property owners. We'll help with all of that, but notices go out to all the property owners. You set a public hearing date, and then there has to be a hearing on the project with the property owners. And so we give them the opportunity to come, you know, question the project, question how the assessment's being done, all of that. After that is when the commission will approve an order that says, move forward, and then the construction can occur really anytime after that. So I would say, you know, whenever the plans and specs are done, let's go ahead and get the rest of that done very quickly, so that as soon as the hearing is held, that's when you'll go out with your bids.
So when would you anticipate that hearing roughly taking place?
It depends on when the plans and specs are going to be done.
I'd like to have this bid and under contract by the 1st of April. So,
And that'd be
back
prior
to that.
to that.
I mean, whoever we hire to do engineering, we're talking 2 months. That's
Right,
it.
that's right.
So sometime shortly after
Probably
the first of the
February.
year?
February.
Right,
probably.
Okay.
that's my guess.
So after the plans and specs are approved by them, notices to the landowners, then the public hearing about the whole, when plans and specs are approved, does that mean we're engaging that engineer?
No, you would have engaged the engineer before that.
That, that's to go out to bid for construction.
Yeah, that hearing, they're approving the plans and specs. We already had the consultant on board.
Okay, before we get that consultant, before we write that contract, then I need to coordinate that with the financing, because we'll have to have that in order to do a purchase order to that.
Right, and that's what she's
Okay.
saying, that
Okay.
until, we'll have to have that in place, the financing in place for you to be able to sign it as far as having funds.
Okay, you just let me know when you're ready to bring that up here for the engineer.
And I think, I think we'll probably target somewhere around the first week of December for that.
Because of our.
And, for my part, I'll be bringing the financing documents back. Or I think Joy Howard actually may be coming to that meeting, but, the construction period financing is fairly simple. And it'll just be, there won't be any payments until the maturity. So,
On our consultant, normally we allow them to bid to bill every 30 days. Is that going to be an issue?
No, that's okay.
And I envision drawdowns on this, and then we just take it as we need it. And
Yep,
Wait
exactly.
and see, so we'll have to figure out where we're gonna put this at,
Yeah.
account-wise, yeah.
That's all I have. Sarah, if you have
Okay.
questions?
I think it's a good creative way to improve our roads out in the county, and so
We appreciate it.
I think it's great.
Thank you.
So are you looking for a signature on this
What we
today?
need is,
So I need a-
we need
we
an
need a
actual
complete
motion and a
document.
vote on the.
We don't have a complete document.
You do. Where's-
No, we don't. We don't have Exhibit A or B.
Okay, let me see the resolution. Or the wording.
What are the exhibits?
Oh, well,
Is this
they
yours?
were with what we emailed. Okay.
They're basically the boundaries
Right.
set forth on the document.
The boundaries and the list of the costs.
And it's there's 103 lots.
Correct.
How are those lots, does each lot share in an equal portion of that, or is it done by per acre, or it's just done per lot?
We divided it up per lot. I think there were some options on street frontage versus acreage versus lot. And since the HOA fees are based on per lot, we thought that was easiest.
And it's 103, not counting the lake lot? Is that?
Yeah, the lake is not
More like-
technically allotted, it's our community, part of our community.
Common area?
So do you?
I don't have that.
This is on the petition. So this is how it's laid out. And because the lots are all very similarly sized,
Okay.
and they all front, the streets that are being improved, then that's how we got to the point of just.
I wouldn't say they're similarly sized.
Oh, well, on here.
Well, I'm looking at a lot that's 1.8 acres, and then there's some that are 0.8 acres.
No, there shouldn't be any that are 1.8. That might be a combination of what they own being almost 2 acres. but
Yeah,
I think they
it's not
vary.
divided, at least not on our GIS, but,
Yeah.
and most of them are there's a 1.5, and then there's a 0.8, and
As long as the HOA is proves
Yeah.
how it's split up,
Yeah.
that's a big thing.
Right.
That's usually the biggest holdup, is getting them to agree on how they're gonna do it, because
Right.
the ones at the front of it are like, well, I only use this much of the road, I don't wanna pay that much, and
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have that much
Suggestions
land.
like that.
Yeah, if the HOA's all agreeable to pay the same,
it's all that smooth, I'm just glad
I'm
we're
like-
able to get it going.
yeah, let's do
so I don't have a problem, I'm just asking the question, so.
Yeah.
And then, so question for our public works people is we got 2 streets that are a dead end, and I know you guys are concerned about snow removal and stuff, and typically we haven't accepted roads that are dead ends into our system for snow removal. Is that correct?
Correct. To keep costs down, we kind of made, just verbally said, with your approval, approval that we could accept those.
Okay.
One, actually both could go into future development, and the length is not significant.
Okay.
That it wouldn't cause us a major hardship to have to just plow it down and back up. You know, in some cases, it's not a good deal, but in this case, it's short enough that it almost, the way it's laid out, almost serves as a turnaround as it is.
So
That would be your all's.
So you're gonna accept them conditionally, or, I mean,
We would just accept it to the end of that lot on each one of those, or at the end of the constructed street.
yeah, I don't have a problem doing that. I just think that, you know, we've told certain developers that, you know, we wouldn't accept it until there was a turnaround, and I just want to be fair to everybody. I'm not trying to get in a pissing match here, but anyway, I mean, I just, you know, I think it's great if it goes into future development, but I think it's important that there's something that, and I don't know, maybe that's part of
We're
our,
different on it, it's really your all's call. I know for all, you know, existing developments and whatnot, a turnaround has to be constructed. This being as unique as it is, maybe lends itself to doing that, allowing it, but it's really up to you all. And a temporary turnaround can be built relatively easily.
just out of gravel or something.
We typically would make them be paved, at least in asphalt.
Well, you said temporary.
Well, what we've had issues with when they try putting in rocks, you get a wet runner, and when we drop off there with a van or truck, you know, it ruts up, and we have the issue of trying to keep the void from getting stuck right there.
Right.
I mean, it's,
If you guys are okay with leaving it that way and backing out, just don't come back here in 2 years going, oh, we want them to build a hammerhead because it's hard to turn
You know,
around.
if
So if y'all are okay with it, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, we can use this kind of as a test case, and,
Well, no, this is a special.
well, it's a special circumstance, but I mean, it's still,
subdivisions that were taken over in the past where we have to do the exact same thing in right now. That prior to our time, for us, so it's not like it's something completely new for us.
Well, if y'all are wanting them to do something with it, now's the time to do it. Otherwise, if you're fine with leaving it that way, then let's leave it that way and let's move on.
Both those streets lead to property that I know there's already interest in and development, so
All right.
I don't suspect it's gonna be that way very long.
I'm just thinking about this reserve and this time period that there may be issues with as far as it's more of an obligation on the county that maybe we could look at the budget as far as next year and make sure we have a little reserve in there for this project, so.
So, as these roads go into future development, will we make them put in some type of a turnaround before we accept those roads?
As far as the county, we have no method of doing that. It's, you know, we require, if there's open property behind it, we require streets to be built where it can, for future expansion. Because what we want them to do is be all interconnected. We don't want long cul-de-sacs, you know. It creates an issue with getting emergency services. Something happens that blocks the road. We want to have multiple entrances.
But if they build something later on before we accept it, it would have to be to where we could turn around. That's what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
we
Definitely.
have roads that are like this, and we just don't accept that piece.
That's what I'm getting at.
The
We
little
won't
stuff.
push no on it until we accept it.
In this case,
Okay.
none of it's accepted.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different,
Well,
but
it's-
yet it is, you know, the same.
Similar to Lakewood, I mean,
Lakewood's an example, yeah.
yep, Gary Sneeder's development, I mean, you didn't do snow removal there for a long time because there was no way to turn around.
There's no way to turn around, exactly.
Okay, well, that's just want to make sure that we're doing it the same to everybody.
I mean, if you all want to just have them go ahead and build a turnaround, then we can put that in there. It's not a big deal. It is going to cost a little bit extra, but in the big scheme of things, it's not, it's not a huge cost.
To be honest, we would probably look at anyhow, you know, when we do designs.
Well, if somebody wants, going to develop that and extend the road, I don't really need a turnaround, but I need to know that if they do that, they're gonna build it to county standards and, or they're not gonna tie into our road, right? Yeah, we won't allow a private road to tie into our road.
Any future development would have to go through the planning process.
Right.
and would get approved with.
Private roads can tie into ours. You know, that's entirely up to the developer. We discourage that. But they can tie a private drive into our system. Westview Heights is a good example out there that, I can't remember the street out on the end of it.
Idle Spur or something.
Yeah, Bridle Spur ties into our street system, but it's private. We stop at the turnaround.
Okay. So, I'm good.
Okay, so I think now you've got the legal description, which is Exhibit A, and B is the map.
Right. Do we have an original
Sorry.
to sign that, or can we attach one of these, I guess?
You can attach that too.
Okay.
Yeah. I just gave you 2 extra copies in case you wanted to look at it.
And so to move forward, we, you just need to
Vote.
motion, second, approve
Right,
it,
right.
and then everybody sign it. Did you write it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I did on this copy.
You want to see this, Jay?
They threw a copy of
Oh, did they?
I got too much paper on my desk already.
Do you? Need a little more on your desk, huh?
No.
So is there any other action that we need to take with this bid?
No, because we're accepting Hawthorne's
Okay.
bid in this
In that.
order.
Okay.
And I'm going to write Hawthorne Bank in here. I did on this one, but.
Okay. Is that the original?
Change this.
I don't know, but, okay.
Here we go.
So the financing documents with Hawthorne will be subject to your future approval. We'll draft those now and then bring those back at that meeting that we talked about somewhere around the first week of December.
Okay, so I was just reading this to try to figure out which direction we needed to head according to these documents, so. I move that we engage Hawthorne Bank to finance and instruct Public Works to solicit plans and specifications for the Parkview Meadow Neighborhood Improvement Project.
Second.
And if you, I'm sorry, could you amend that to approve the order as presented?
Okay?
It does what you said, but it also
fine.
has other things to it. so.
Let's vote on that, and then I'll make a motion to sign this.
To make a vote on, do we need to amend it? Amend the motion,
That's fine.
or?
I can make, so, I'll amend the motion to say, I move that we sign the document that orders Hawthorne Bank to finance and instruct Public Works to engage a firm for the plans and specifications of the Parkview Meadows Neighborhood Improvement Project.
I'll second the amendment. So we vote on the amendment first? And then you vote on the motion?
No, we just need to vote on the amendment.
So vote on the amendment to the motion, and then vote on the motion.
I amended it.
You gotta vote on the amendment.
That's fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't know who Robert is, but he's the one who made the rules. Aye.
You want to vote on the motion then?
I think you're supposed to.
Bill's not here.
Okay.
Well, you want her in there just so we have somebody to argue with? I got all that till 11:30.
But you have stuff to do.
I do.
Make a motion to vote on the motion?
No, the motion's on the table. We voted on the amendment to the motion.
Just voted.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I don't know where that one was.
This is the original.
That's the original.
And then I just.
Some attachments if you need them.
Copy with all of the other documents.
You might want to email
I just want to email you a copy.
that
Yeah, I know.
with the amendment stuff, or the
That's already signed.
addendum things, I mean. So we have them, I just like to keep that one, refer back to them.
I move that we approve accounts payable.
Don't go out of order until we approve them.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
I'm sorry.
That's why.
Chris, we were all out there, he did get that last one approved.
That's right. Thank you.
Move we recess, and do any other business come before the commission?
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move we recess till 4:30 PM.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Let Lynn figure that out.
You with HOA?
Kelly, she did